It's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever, Warren.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, breaking news, culture, magic warfare. We'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. Welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, the most watched daily Bitcoin only live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. We have a ton to unpack today. Actually, this is a topic that you guys absolutely love, so we like to cover it because you guys love it when we cover it, which is the question, what is Bitcoin's full potential valuation? And it's really interesting because this is something that you can go back all the way to Bitcoin's early days. It was actually the legendary Hal Finney that brought this up in one of his original posts on the Bitcoin forums, that legendary website, bitcointalk.org. And it's just interesting to see kind of this being talked about again. Today's article that we're going to cover is specifically one written by Jesse Myers, but he comes to that same conclusion, that same number. As it relates to dollars, obviously Bitcoin's going to go up forever. But as it relates to the total addressable market, like there is, I wouldn't say a cap supply, but there's obviously going to be a percentage of which people are going to feel comfortable allocating to Bitcoin to. Now, let's talk about all the assets for a second, right? Bitcoin, in my opinion, it's superior to gold, right? There's an inflation rate to gold. You don't know how much gold is in the ground. You don't know how much gold is floating in outer space. So there's an inflation rate to gold. Real estate, which is, real estate has a premium all over the United States, all over the world, as people try to maintain their purchasing power. They buy a piece of real estate, but fundamentally, you still have to pay rent to the government, right? Even if you own your house, you still have to pay property tax, right? Bitcoin is really the only asset that has absolute scarcity, right? There will only ever be 21 million. That inflation rate gets cut in half every 4 years. And as of now, you don't have to pay, a property tax to the government for owning Bitcoin, which I think would be absurd. I think that's definitely something that, they might talk about in the future. But as of now, that's not the case. Also, in other news, I really believe this is something that we've been talking about the last 3 days or so. I really believed that this fight for self-custody and the regulatory fight in the United States was going to be a lot tougher. I'll be honest with you, just all the things that the current administration was doing in the background, the proposed 30% tax for Bitcoin miners, the demonization of self-custody, right? The arrest of Bitcoin privacy developers and Bitcoin OGs, right? But all of a sudden, it seems like they did a 180. And the reason that I believe that happened was because of how unpopular that is for their political base. And we are in an election year. So, if a key demographic doesn't really support you being quote unquote anti-Bitcoin, that's a problem. And now that, because, in the United States, it's the way it is a two-party system, right? You have the opposing a political opponent saying, actually, we're going to be pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto. That kind of creates a situation, right? So it seems like they did a 180 and the FIT 21 bill passed in the House of Representatives. But I also have to give a shout out to the major Democratic support that came out, because it wasn't just a Republican bill that passed. There was a big percentage of Democrats that run across the aisle and also supported the bill as well. And after all, I really believe Bitcoin is bipartisan. Bitcoin supports everyone. It gives people in countries where normally they wouldn't be able to open a bank account just because of the place that they happen to be born in. Bitcoin gives them an opportunity, right? So, in terms of equality, in terms of equity, I think Bitcoin is the best tool ever, right? So I don't think this should be a partisan issue. It became one a little bit, but it seems like that is slowly changing. And also you have Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman is infamous for saying, we're the US government, we can print money, but everyone else can't because you're not the government. He had an absolute meltdown in Congress yesterday, kind of saying a lot of the quiet parts out loud. But it wasn't the own that he thinks it was. But basically saying like, look, like we're the dollar, we have the ability to do these things. These alternative currencies are our competition to the dollar. And like Larry Lepard commented, absolute savage, saying, "Yep, Congressman, that's the entire point." Muhaha, like laughing. So it's absolutely hilarious. But this is great. This is great news from a regulatory perspective in the United States. 100%. And also a little bit of news for you guys. We've been trying to cover for the last couple of days. We've just ran out of time. Is the Julian Assange case, which of course is something that it's very dear to us because I do believe that the fight for freedom of speech is like the front line for the fight for Bitcoin. If you think that if they're going to be okay with you transacting freely, if they're not okay with you speaking freely, then I don't think your head's in the right place. So it's really important. And any type of news that comes up in regards to Ross Ulbricht or Julian Assange, we cover it. We like to stay on top of it on this show. So it's going to be a great show. And also we have an incredibly special guest, a huge fan of her work. I've never had the honor to have her on the show before. And of course, I'm talking Anita Posch. Posch, did I say that correctly?
Absolutely correctly. Hi, yes. Great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Anita is the founder of, I just had it pulled up and I completely pulled it down, and
it's an nonprofit initiative called Bitcoin for Fairness.
And could you give a little bit like a little elevator pitch on what that is?
Okay, sure. So I started Bitcoin for Fairness 2 or 3 years ago because in an attempt to bring Bitcoin grassroots education and support for local groups to African countries, because I believe that Bitcoin is actually the only money that can bring equality and more fairness to the world. Through the fact that it's permissionless and can't be censored. And since like 55% of the global population live in authoritarian ruled countries, and most of those people are in African countries, I thought it's the best to begin there. And so I've been in Zimbabwe and in the sub-Saharan area of Africa in the last couple of years, in total like 1.5 years. And we had quite some successes, but also very challenging situations there. And that's the goal of Bitcoin for Fairness, is to bring Bitcoin education and awareness to all places, basically, and mostly those in the global South.
100%. And I fundamentally agree with you. I think in the global South specifically, Bitcoin, I would say, is a necessity, right? I think a lot of us in the West, we have the financial privilege of having relatively stable fiat currencies that allow us to transact, not to mention the fact that the political situations are a little bit more stable as well. But not everyone has that privilege. I'm originally from Venezuela myself, right? There's a country that endured hyperinflation. Argentina, of course, the nations of, many nations in Africa as well. So is something that people have to understand, right? Bitcoin is for them. Like Bitcoin for them, it completely changes the conversation. It allows them to save. It allows them to transact without fear of persecution, without fear of currency debasement. So it's an absolute game changer for people of the global South. 100% agree with you. And I'm very excited to hear more about it during the culture segment. what your initiatives have been, what your projects have been in the global south. I do want to bring up my legendary co-host, always optimistic, giant smile on his face today. How you doing, Opti? That was the hat that we got in El Salvador, right? The Viva Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think this
Shout
is the
out
one
to
I
the
stole
Viva
from
Bitcoin.
you.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you the black one and the white one. I don't really wear hats. But shout out to the Viva Bitcoin guys. They're absolutely awesome. The jerseys that you guys gave us were dope. Man, I don't have it with me, but I wish I showed it off for you guys. But yeah, man, how you doing, Opti?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Life on the Bitcoin standard, life as a Bitcoiner is great. It couldn't get better. Well, it could probably get a little bit better. And I think we're seeing that it's starting to change in our favor. But before we go on, I have to give a huge shout out to my favorite politician, Brad Sherman. He's the only politician that actually gets what's going on, and I absolutely love it when we get new sound bites from him. So this is great. I get giddy when we get Brad Sherman on the show because it's so amazing. We need an IRL with Brad Sherman, Nico. You and Brad Sherman, that'd be amazing.
Oh, man, I don't know if you would agree to that, but yeah, that would be epic content. That absolute meltdown. Anyways, guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash the like button. Help us break 100 likes within the first hour of the show. Really, really helps with the algo. So if you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like button. If you're watching us on Rumble, smash the like button. If you're watching us on Twitter, smash the like button. It tells the algos to push the orange signal forward. Anyways, guys, sit back, relax. We got loads of info, tons of Bitcoin signal for you guys. But before we jump to it, I do want to give a shout out to our lead sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the best place to build your Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Buy Bitcoin with Bitcoin Well. It's a self-custody by default Bitcoin platform. It's automatic self-custody. Future-proof your money with Bitcoin Well. What is automatic self-custody? What does self-custody by default means? It means that it's a non-custodial platform. When you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you have to put your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. So as soon as you buy Bitcoin and the funds clear, it doesn't stay on the platform, doesn't even allow you to do that. It goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because after all, self-custody is evolution. Go to bitcoinwell.com, buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, you literally go to the website, bitcoinwell.com/simply. You put in your email address, literally the verification process, the whole thing literally takes less than like 2 to 3 minutes. It's a clear 1% spread, which is basically the industry standard at this point. It's Bitcoin only, obviously, and it's non-custodial, which is the most important part for me. And obviously that empowers sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. So guys, support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps, because self-custody is the revolution. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and start your first step to becoming a sovereign individual. Bitcoinwell.com. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You can scan the QR code on your screen or check the link in the video description to take you to stampseed.com. So you can get yourself a titanium seed phrase storage kit, so you don't have to put yourself in a position where you have to explain to your grandchildren why you lost their generational wealth because for whatever reason you decided to store your Bitcoin seed words on paper. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in that position. Stamp them on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the Stampseed website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 68,060. Sats per dollar, 1,469. Block height, 844,769. Blocks to halving, 205,231. Halving estimate, March 22nd, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,674 Bitcoin. Capacity value, $318 million. Realized monetary inflation, 1.65%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin is currently at 1.34 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.23%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting started. Anyways, this is what I want to talk about during the numbers today. Historic in terms of the regulatory environment here in the United States. Companies getting more regulatory clarity, but it's a shame that it needed to get political in order for these things to happen. It's a shame that, certain political candidates started to like put their arms up in the air and say, listen, you know what, I'm pro Bitcoin. Elizabeth Warren taking the, I'm going to build an anti, crypto army. Like what, like why? Like, it's such a shame too, because I remember Elizabeth Warren was part of the whole Occupy Wall Street movement. And like what happened? Like did she become part of Wall Street? Did Wall Street start paying her off? I don't understand, because look, fundamentally, we all have to understand that, like, look, Bitcoin is apolitical. It supports everyone. But you know who it doesn't support? It doesn't support tyrants, right? So anyone who's against freedom, anyone who's against the individual being able to hold and earn in a money that they can't debase and confiscate easily is fundamentally against Bitcoin, full stop. Anyways, so for our audio listeners, the name of the article is U.S. House Approves Crypto Fit 21 Bill with Wave of Democratic Support. It goes on to say the crypto industry recorded its biggest ever U.S. policy win on Wednesday when the U.S. House of Representatives approved a wide-reaching bill to establish regulations for digital asset markets, recording a 279 to 136 vote that saw Democrats crossing party lines to support it. The Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act marks the first time a major crypto bill has cleared one of the chambers of Congress. The issue now heads to the U.S. Senate, where its future is much murkier because there's no counterpart bill. Support for such an effort remains unclear, and the necessary committees haven't done the same level of work on crypto. The U.S. has fallen behind global jurisdictions in establishing crypto regulations, and despite win on Wednesday, implementing such oversight is far from complete. We need rules of the road, said a representative, one of the Democrats who buckled the opposition of the White House, and the ranking Democrat on the House Financial Service Committee, Representative Maxine Waters. He called it well-reasoned, thoughtful, bipartisan legislation, and argued before the vote that, quote, it's fit to become law if we work together. Overall, 71 Democrats and 208 Republicans voted in favor of the bill versus 3 Republicans and 133 Democrats who voted against it. President Joe Biden opposed the bill with a policy statement, though he didn't say he'd veto the bill, as he had recently when the Congress sought to overturn a Securities and Exchange Commission effort to set crypto accounting policy. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler also came out strongly against the legislation in a lengthy public statement, arguing the bill wasn't needed and endangered existing securities regulations. So it's just interesting the change in tune, and how it became a bipartisan issue as soon as everyone started to see that this wasn't necessarily a winning issue from the political side of things, especially when a major part of your demographic is extremely pro Bitcoin. Here's Brad Sherman, the anti-Bitcoin House member, and he went absolutely off yesterday. And you know what? A lot of the things that he's saying are right, but I don't think this is the own that he thinks it is, because I think a lot of people have lost faith in the institution of government. I think a lot of people have lost faith in this idea that for some reason the government should be the only one that has the privilege to create money for free. And I think a lot of people have lost faith in the existing system, specifically if you're from the younger generations. I mean, you can't own a house. You've been outpriced of everything. They're even telling you, you'll own nothing and be happy. So, a lot of the things that I think he thinks are an own, I think, if you haven't benefited from this system, you're kind of like, I think it's time for a change, to be honest. Anyways, let's hear what he has to say.
It creates a competitor to the US dollar, which has one advantage. It's right in the name: hidden money. Hide your money from the IRS, from our sanctions enforcers, from everyone involved in the US government. And then finally, crypto declares that it wants to partially displace the US dollar as a reserve currency. If it's successful in that, it will
30 additional seconds.
The gentleman's recognized.
You have
for 30
to understand
seconds.
how important it is. We, frankly, are not fiscally responsible in this House. We don't collect near as much taxes as we spend in benefits. We're able to do that without too much harm because of the role of the US dollar as a reserve currency. We have fiscal policies that would make Argentina blush, but we're able to do it. The crypto bros see the incredible amount of money and power the US government has by being the world's reserve currency, and they say no, they want to appropriate them from themselves. I yield back.
So, I mean, here's Larry Lepard responding, yep, Congressman, that's the entire point. Muhaha. Here's Parman saying, ha ha ha, he's comparing themselves to Argentina. Way to set the bar low. But I mean, it's interesting because he did say the quiet part out loud. He's like, look, because we're able to print this money. I also want to give a shout out to the super chat by Jaimecito. Thank you, bro, for the $2. Appreciate it. He's saying the quiet part out loud. Like, what else can I say? Like, he's literally saying, because we have this ability to create money out of nothing, because we're the world's reserve currency, we're able to spend and pay for things, even though we don't have enough money in terms of collecting revenue through tax. That's not enough to pay for the bill. But because we're the world's reserve currency, we're able to, have we're able to just spend money the way that we're doing it. We're able to have these fiscal policies, even though we might not necessarily be able to afford them. Like, he's literally saying the quiet part out loud, and then he's saying, the quote unquote crypto bros, they want that power for themselves. That's not true, right? What Bitcoiners are advocating for is an ecosystem where no one has the privilege of being able to create money for free that another fellow human being has to work for, right? If you want to make more Bitcoin, you have to get in line, you have to mine it like everybody else. You have to earn it, you have to mine it, or you have to buy it, right? There is no special privilege of a bureaucratic elite in Washington, D.C. that has the ability to create money out of thin air. And what he fails also to acknowledge is, why was Bitcoin invented? I mean, it's literally, or discovered, depending on the way that you're looking at it. It's in the Genesis block. It says Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks, right? Satoshi knew that they were just going to keep on printing money, and there are unintended consequences of that. I'm sure that most people in DC, they come from a place of, they're good natured, like they want what's best. But there are unintended consequences to the money printing. And what are those unintended consequences? The prices of assets go through the roof. So if you're in the lower and middle classes and you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you don't have the means to buy assets or save in assets, you're getting absolutely wrecked every time they print money. And this is more This is more apparent, like Anita was saying earlier on, in the global south. Right. This is more apparent in countries like Argentina. This is more apparent in countries like Venezuela. You get absolutely destroyed. Bitcoin protects your purchasing power. Bitcoin protects your energy in this unconfiscatable, undebasable wealth. That's what we want. Right. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So, you know, I don't think that was the own that Brad Sherman thought that was. I think that was a self-own, if anything, because Larry Lepard said it best, like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we want. And it's not our fault that they have abused that privilege. We, the people, believed in governments, right? And they're the ones that, you know, started politicizing money, weaponizing money, and debasing money at the expense of the people. And it's really the lower and middle classes that get affected the most by this irresponsible fiscal spending. It's not so much, you know, the very wealthy. The very wealthy do have the means to save in assets. So asset prices go up for them. They benefit from that. You can even make an argument for that. But it's really the lower and middle classes that really get hammered. And that's what Bitcoin is for. Bitcoin is for everyone, right? Bitcoin is for the people. I would say Bitcoin is the people's money. I would say the dollar is the politicians' money. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Anita and then Opti.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you just said. I mean, the system is built on fiat money, and it's built on the organizations that were basically set up after the Second World War. So when we had the conference in Bretton Woods, when the US was the winner of the Second World War, they basically invited old white men. I have nothing against old white men, okay, but it was like 60 white men who from Europe and the US who basically decided the fate of the world for the coming 50, 60, 70, or maybe 100 years. We don't know how long the hegemony of the petrodollar is going to last. But basically, those people started international organizations and a financial system of regulations that basically is now excluding 2 billion people worldwide because they can't have IDs, so they don't have papers, they can't KYC themselves, or they are too poor to be have a bank account, or the banks are not there where they live because it's too costly to have a bank somewhere out there in the rural region. So basically there are no banks, and even more, like most people in African countries don't want to be in a bank. They don't want to have a bank account because they are totally unreliable, very bureaucratic, very expensive. And it's basically something that happens to everyone and anyone here and there, that they close your bank account. Yeah? And even more if you're in basically an activist working for freedom and against these authoritarian rulers that are sitting or having power, holding on to power in many of these countries for decades, actually. And so that's where Bitcoin comes in, and where I see, or many of us Bitcoiners see, a great potential. But it's also difficult because there have been so many scams around Bitcoin, you know, like all shitcoiners copy Bitcoin in a way. And in the African regions where I have been, the first question people asking me is mostly, Bitcoin, is it not a scam? Because everyone has been scammed in one or the other way. And so there's a lot of distrust. And sometimes I have the feeling that people don't want to use Bitcoin because they can't believe it's true. And they rather go with what they know, so with the problems that fiat money is bringing them, because they are aware of it. They already manage, you know, they know their ways around and what to do. So sometimes I'm really, to be honest, a little bit disappointed that people don't see the advantages that Bitcoin could bring them. And also, I have to be quite honest about that, I think, because we think, before I went to African countries, I really thought, yeah, people are using Bitcoin. No, most of them are using USDT. Yeah, they want stable coins. For instance, in Zimbabwe, 80% of the people who use cryptocurrency use USDT and 20% Bitcoin. And so that's also interesting because people don't understand, it seems, that the inflation they have on their own money is basically losing them more. So they lose more value with the inflation than if they were to sit out the volatility of Bitcoin. But of course, the problem is people can't save like we can. So they need to spend immediately, or they can't risk losing any value because they don't have a lot. So there are many, many opportunities, and but still the system that the US and European countries have built are basically built on rules that favor them. And also, like exactly what Alex Gladstein is also always saying, it's a hidden repression with all these credit and loans that the International Monetary Fund, etc., that they are giving to Zambia or Zimbabwe or all these countries. They're basically indebting those countries. And that's a circle, a deadly spiral in a way, I would say. And on the other hand, I always say, yeah, but with Bitcoin, those countries, they can use their vast natural resources to mine Bitcoin and build their self-sovereign monetary basis. But I don't think that these governments, like in Zimbabwe, for instance, that they want that, because then they wouldn't have their own system anymore, the fiat system, with which they make their money. So I believe a lot of people also in these areas of authoritarian leaderships, they use Bitcoin. I'm quite sure about that. But they don't want their people to use it, of course.
Yeah, of course. Actually, Alex Gladstein wrote an incredible piece, which is Bitcoin is the Trojan horse for freedom. And he was making that the case that, you know, a lot of these authoritarians, they want to benefit from number go up technology, but they don't want the freedom enabling technology that comes with it. But they don't realize that it's inextricably linked. You cannot disconnect the two. So yeah, I 100% agree. But anyways, guys, let's move on to the news. Opti, we're already at the 31 minute mark.
Can I just say that I just absolutely love Brad Sherman. He's my favorite politician. He's the only politician, whether he knows it or not, that actually, you know, exposes the game at hand. And even though he's trying to own us, I love when he cell phones. He's my favorite. He's my favorite.
Yeah, no, me too. Total by Mr. Brad Sherman. But anyways, guys, before we move on to the news segment, I do want to give an extremely special shout out to our sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the Pleb Party that is going to be hosted in Nashville. This Pleb Party is the day before the largest Bitcoin conference in the US, Bitcoin 2024. So if you're already going to the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, you definitely don't want to miss the Pleb Party, which is a day before the Bitcoin conference. It's Thursday, July 25th. It's a 12-hour open bar from noon to midnight in Nashville. It's going to be hosted at an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. Over 1,000 Bitcoin plebs are expected to attend. So far, confirmed attendees include Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Pubby, Tatum Turnup, and many, many more. You won't be able to buy tickets at the door. Last Pleb Party was completely sold out 9 days before the event. There's roughly 40 tickets left at the $200 price point. So, you know, prices will increase the closer and closer we get to the Bitcoin conference. You definitely don't want to miss the biggest Bitcoin pleb party of the year, the pleb party in Nashville, Tennessee, 2024. You could scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. Get your tickets now before they run out. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. Lots to talk about.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. It'll take you directly to the Passport by Foundation Devices website, where you guys could get yourself a Passport hardware wallet, completely open source, easy to use. You can pair it with the Envoy app, and it makes spending cold storage Bitcoin incredibly easy. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. You can scan the QR code or check the link in the video description and get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. All right. Today's topic for the news is, what is Bitcoin's full potential valuation? Now, it's really interesting because Hal Finney originally wrote about this many, many years ago. This was dated January 11th, 2009. I think the Bitcoin price was like $1 back then. But this was the original post, which we'll get to in a second. But first, let's read Jesse Meyer's updated version of it, I guess you could say. And the question is, how high can it go? Where is the ceiling of Bitcoin? And he kind of breaks down the thought process and like how he got to these conclusions. But first, it's important to give a little bit of context. So what market is Bitcoin competing in? Most people think Bitcoin as a currency. While this is true, it causes confusion because Bitcoin is more than a currency. It is a store of value asset like gold. In truth, Bitcoin is digital gold designed to improve on gold's strengths and solve for gold's weaknesses. This means that Bitcoin is competing against gold and other store of value assets that its market value itself. It goes on to say Bitcoin is competing with store of value assets. That means gold, but also bonds, real estate, and equities. In truth, it means that Bitcoin is competing with all assets because all assets serve as store of value assets. Different assets have different ceilings, meaning the percentage of the global asset pie they could ever realistically be. This is because the valuation of each asset category is constrained by key variables in their respective valuation equations. The value of a company is determined by two major inputs: its expected future cash flows and the discount rate for those cash flows. For real estate, it's a similar story. Global real estate value is constrained by expected future cash flows, mortgage rates, and the amount of new supply being created. Commodities are different in the sense that interest rates are not a primary input that helps to establish a ceiling for valuations. Instead, commodity valuations are primarily constrained by new supply. For instance, with gold, global mining efforts collectively add 2% per year to above ground supply. The steady 2% annual supply growth has been true for the last century. As the low-hanging fruits of gold deposits have been plucked, technology has unlocked access to previously unreachable deposits. At 12 trillion in total above ground gold, that means the global market cap must absorb 240 billion in new supply every year. This downward pressure on gold's price acts like the force of gravity, keeping gold's value constrained by the realities of supply and demand. What makes Bitcoin so different is that the market has to absorb half as much new supply from mining every 4 years. In 2016, that was 3.6% annual supply growth. Today, 1.8%. In 2024, we're currently here, 0.9%. In 2028, 0.45%. And nobody on earth can alter that relentless march either. Metaphorically speaking, gravity gets cut in half every 4 years for Bitcoin. Therefore, the variable that typically constrains shrinks the valuation of commodities shrinks to zero over time. Goes on to say, to put it simply, there's a fixed supply of them and they're getting more and more scarce. So you guys have seen this. For our audio listeners, here's a graph, right? It shows the Bitcoin subsidy, and then over time, that subsidy keeps getting cut in half. That is absolute scarcity. Not only absolute scarcity, but also increasing scarcity. Here's a quote from Satoshi Nakamoto. He goes on to say, as the number of users grow, the value per coin increases. It has the potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, the value goes up, which could attract more users to take advantage of the increasing value. Satoshi Nakamoto, February 18th, 2009. Goes on to say, there's a lot of wealth out there. All of it is sitting in assets of one kind or another. But what does the full picture of the global asset landscape look like? Incredibly, there doesn't seem to be a simple high-level view of this anywhere. So I spent the day researching and gathering data in 2021 and have updated that analysis for 2023. Here's the result. Obviously, the Bitcoin market cap is currently sitting at 1.34 trillion. Gold is currently sitting at 15 trillion, but it's roughly the same. Art is 18 trillion, collectibles 16 trillion, equities 115 trillion, real estate 330 trillion, bonds 300 trillion, money 120 trillion. Now, very common sense observation here. I think Bitcoin is better than gold. I think Bitcoin is better than real estate. Obviously, everyone needs a roof over their head. But in terms of using real estate as a store of value, I think Bitcoin is superior. Bitcoin, I think, is obviously superior to bonds in every which way. That doesn't need an explanation. And obviously, Bitcoin is the best money the world has ever seen. So do a little bit of simple math, everyone, right? So if the Bitcoin market cap is sitting roughly at 1.34 trillion and there's 900 trillion in total total global assets, I mean, you can just do some quick math in your head and see where this is going. Anyways, Bitcoin's total addressable market is the world's balance sheet, all 900 trillion of it. Any of the value stored in some particular asset could theoretically be reallocated to Bitcoin instead. All it takes is for individuals to decide that Bitcoin is a better asset to hold than what they are currently holding. With that in mind, we have to ask ourselves an important question. When Bitcoin's mechanics continue to play out, will more than 0.05% of the world's capital eventually realize it wants to be in an asset like that? I think the only logical conclusion is yes. What is Bitcoin's full price potential? Bitcoin enthusiasts often make the mistake of concluding that Bitcoin's potential valuation is infinite. This is true in dollar terms, since there is no limit to the amount of dollar debasement that could occur into the future, but it is unrealistic in real terms relative to other assets. The truth is that Bitcoin stands in relative competition with other store of value assets, all of which have unique value propositions. A wealthy individual is not very likely to sell their mansion or their prize Rembrandt to buy Bitcoin, but is instead more likely to sell some of their bond portfolio because they believe Bitcoin better fulfills the intended purpose of holding bonds. By addressing each store of value asset bucket, it's possible to estimate what percentage of the value stored in each will be reallocated to Bitcoin once the world collectively understands Bitcoin's unparalleled properties. The exercise ultimately yields a full potential valuation for Bitcoin in today's dollars. Here's what I think is a reasonable, even conservative estimate of Bitcoin's full potential. Right? So out of the 900 trillion, here Jesse Myers is making the argument that he believes that Bitcoin could potentially capture 200 trillion of that 900 trillion. And that would put the price of Bitcoin at roughly $10 million per coin. So he goes on to say, my conservative estimate suggested an outrageous full potential for Bitcoin's price, $10 million per Bitcoin in today's dollars. To put this in another way, I believe Bitcoin's full potential is to eat 25% of the world's value. Now, what's really interesting also is that Hal Finney was talking about this many years ago. And he goes on to say, as an amusing thought experiment, imagine that Bitcoin is successful and becomes the dominant payment system in use throughout the world. Then the total value of the currency should be equal to the total value of all the wealth in the world. Current estimates of total worldwide household wealth that I have found range from 100 trillion to 300 trillion, with 20 million coins that gives each coin a value of about 10 million. Now, here's like a simple thing that I did very, very quickly, right? And let's say it doesn't reach those hundreds of trillions of dollars mark. Let's say it just reaches the market cap of gold. Roughly, Bitcoin market cap right now is 100. I kind of messed this around. Let's just say, to round it up, even though the math might be wrong because I had to change the Bitcoin market cap because it fluctuated. Anyways, so Bitcoin's market cap is 1.34 trillion. Gold's market cap is 15 trillion. Just if Bitcoin reaches the gold market cap, that would put the price of Bitcoin at roughly $750,000 per Bitcoin. So, I mean, what is that? More than a 10x from here. I think that's still an incredible opportunity. And I think that's literally why it makes it one of the best savings technology the world has ever seen. But anyways, it's kind of like an interesting conversation, especially from Hal's perspective, man. Back in 2009, when he was saying that, or 2011, the price of Bitcoin wasn't even at $1. It was like barely at $1. And, you know, he was saying these astronomical type of predictions and types of things that where he believed it was going. Definitely before his time. But I love how Jesse kind of broke down what the thought process was behind this, broke down all the different assets, broke down, you know, all the different kind of stores of value that a lot of wealthy people are using just to maintain their purchasing power. But what's really interesting to me is, once again, I think Bitcoin's superior to real estate. I think Bitcoin's superior to any of the world's currencies. I think Bitcoin is superior to gold. You know, like, I think it's just a better store of value. So I think it's just a matter of time before the rest of the world realizes that. And I think this process is already playing out. Why do I say that? You have Wells Fargo, you have JP Morgan, all, you know, getting exposure to the Bitcoin spot, Bitcoin ETF. Of course, you have the Wisconsin pension fund, you know, purchasing, there we go, XX, thank you, $783,000 per coin. Thank you, XX. And you have the Wisconsin pension fund getting exposure to Bitcoin. You have Michael Saylor proving that his Bitcoin strategy is beating the S&P 500. It's beating, you know, all the tech stocks. So clearly the Bitcoin strategy is the best strategy. And, you know, these numbers sound absolutely crazy. But at the same time, if I told you that Bitcoin was going to be sitting at $67,000 back when Hal Finney was writing this piece, when Bitcoin was like $100 or $100, you would have laughed me out of the room. You would have thought I was absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's my take on all this. I know this is a topic that you guys really enjoy, because you guys really enjoy every time we do an episode on this. So I want to get Anita. Anita, what are your thoughts on this? Does it even matter? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we all live on hopium, don't we? I mean, of course, that's a great thing to have, you know. I mean, the hope that Bitcoin will go to those valuations. But for me, it's also very, very, very important that it's a perfect medium of exchange. And this brings into play all these billions of people who are disadvantaged at the moment because their countries don't allow them, for instance, to send money freely in and out of the country. And that's not only in authoritarian settings, that's also in our countries. It's not so easy to move your wealth to another country if you want to exit your own home country or something, go to a brighter place if you found one. And especially, like as an example, in Zimbabwe and all other countries like Nigeria or Ghana, you have weekly and monthly limits how much you are allowed to pay from your bank account via digital money or mobile money or your online banking account. You have limits on how much you are allowed to withdraw in cash. In Zimbabwe, you very often have ATMs that are empty. And so if you send money on a regular basis out of the country, out of Zimbabwe, to maybe you have a freelancer in Kenya or in Nigeria, and you want to send them money, it's very difficult because no one wants the local currency. Now it's called the Zimbabwe gold. Before it was the Zimbabwean dollar, because of the high inflation. But then also you mostly don't have US dollar bank accounts, and because Zimbabwe is sanctioned, as soon as you want to have a bank account or a crypto exchange account somewhere, and they see you're from Zimbabwe, you're kicked out of the system. So you try to send your money in a way, I don't know how, definitely not with PayPal, to Ghana or Kenya. And when you do that more often, the Politburo, so basically the Stasi of Zimbabwe, comes to you and says, why are you sending money out of the country that often? That's very unpatriotic. You shouldn't do that. So you don't have any freedom of exchange or freedom of transaction there. And that's the reason why Bitcoin is such a great tool, because no one can stop it. No government, no dictator can stop you from using it. And that's also the reason why I fear, we have a lot of attacks on Bitcoin, onto cryptocurrencies in the US, you know better than I do, but also in the European Union at the moment. And also regarding the price of Bitcoin, if more people use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange to spend it so that others can earn it, we will all also have more adoption from that side, which will also make the price go up. And that's why I think it's very important to spend also, spend and replace, your stack. And so speaking of African adoption, I think it's very interesting that in Nigeria, for instance, Nigeria has the highest share of Bitcoin transactions from the total cryptocurrency volume. It's higher than in North America. That's very interesting. And so a lot of people in Nigeria looking to hedge against inflation and to be able to freely transact with Bitcoin. And so now the government in Nigeria has basically again banned Bitcoin peer-to-peer usage. I don't know how they really want to ban it. And they said the ban is because cryptocurrency is a national security threat. Exactly because of that, what your senator also said, they say it's because the peer-to-peer market influences the price of the local currency, the Naira, downwards. So they blame it on cryptocurrencies, which is a joke. They just don't want it because they know that people exit their corrupted system via Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And they go to that heights that they, I don't know, I guess you know that in March they asked 2 Binance managers to come to Nigeria to discuss, because Nigeria doesn't want Binance in the country anymore. And so those 2 managers came to Nigeria to discuss with authorities, and they were immediately detained. So one of those managers was able to flee, but the other one is still held in Nigeria. And so they really they basically kidnapped him to bring Binance to do what they want. Yeah. And so countries, and not only those countries, but also in Europe, I see a lot of headwind against Bitcoin, and especially privacy, which is actually a human right. But we don't have that anymore, it seems, and that worries me a lot. So I really do hope that like regulators or we the people protest against those developments. But sometimes I'm a little pessimistic, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and especially the Nigeria one, because it's something that we've been covering on Simply, which is like they rolled out a central bank digital currency. It was not popular. And then they started, increasing the capital controls. they blamed Binance. Basically, is Binance, you guys are the reason why why the naira is inflating. It's something actually very similar to what you see all over the world, where governments blame everyone and anything but themselves for inflation, even though they're the sole cause, because they're the ones that are printing, that are debasing the currency. I really see Nigeria as kind of like this foreshadowing of what could potentially happen for the rest of the world. As governments get more trapped into a corner, and like the hubris of Brad Sherman when he was talking about that, and then there's very famous videos of him earlier on basically saying like, you know what, like they think they can print money. We can print money because we're the US government. He's just so sure of himself. He's just so confident in himself. But again, in the US, okay, when things got bad, we hit 9% inflation, 8% inflation. But in these countries, you're talking about double-digit inflation on a monthly basis. People cannot live with that level of currency debasement. People start saving in alternative things. Like I know in Venezuela, one of the things that people do is that they would buy dishwashers and washing machines, and they would store them, or cars, because the car, which is a depreciating asset, would hold more value than the inflating local currency. So 100% agree with you, Anita, and I want to hear more about it specifically during the culture segment. But before we get to that, Opti, you have some quick thoughts. Then we'll go on to the ads, the transition, and then back to Anita.
Yeah, well, my favorite part about the Hal Finney post, especially the first one in 2009, is just how bullish Hal Finney was. Like Bitcoin didn't even have a price set, and he's like, yeah, we're going to $10 million. Like, this is my price prediction. Here's my math behind it. And it really reminds me of what CK always says, like, we're not bullish enough. Be like Hal, guys. Stay bullish. Stay stupidly bullish. This is the way. But kind of going back to what Jesse was saying, I'm kind of getting turned off by the digital gold meme. I think it's a good way to kind of wrap your head around what Bitcoin is. But as Anita was saying, it's like Bitcoin is the best money, period. And the function of money is, of course, three-part. Like one is to store value, another is to be used as a medium exchange, and the third one is as a unit of account. And Bitcoin is all of these things. And so I think using these mechanisms to try to wrap your head around what Bitcoin is, it's kind of a good stepping stone. But after a certain point, you realize like Bitcoin is the best money, period. And yes, of course, I think the numbers now that Jesse was using and we've been using for a while, it's like $900 trillion of total assets in the world. And if Bitcoin takes a small portion of that, and as a Bitcoiner, of course, we think that it'll take a large portion of that, then of course the price is going to go up forever, as the meme goes. But I think, simplifying this is, and of course, 80 IQ Bitcoiner, Bitcoin has no ceiling because fiat has no floor. Like it's infinity divided by 21 million. Always remember that they will continue to print money as long as they're capable of. And once people wake up, they'll go into Bitcoin. And like Anita was saying, once more people adopt Bitcoin, then the price will continue to go up. And I think one of my favorite things when we talk about this is the idea, and I think a lot of people miss this, is that yes, the global wealth pie right now might be 900 trillion, but that pie is not going to stay stagnant. As we create new technology, as more value is created, the pie will get bigger. So that's even more bullish for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin will take a portion of the global pie as it's expanding, and the Bitcoin price and the Bitcoin market cap will, of course, increase with that as well. So I think it's very important for everyone. And I know you might get some flack from people like you're too bullish, but I think you need to maintain being extremely bullish on Bitcoin, not just for the price, but just for a more hopeful future. Bitcoin will improve society. It will improve every aspect of society, as we always say, fix the money, fix the world. So as we move into the future, Bitcoin price, of course, will go up, but things will get better. And if that doesn't make you bullish on Bitcoin, if that doesn't make you bullish on what we're doing here, then you got to go back to your fundamentals and study a little bit of what actually is going to happen with Bitcoin. So, of course, as the chat always says to us and always trolls us, is the true value of Bitcoin is infinity dollars per sat, because it's going up forever, because they'll continue to print more money. But kind of going down the thread that Jesse was going down, I think it's very important to remind people, if that is the framework that they want to use, that Bitcoin is the best performing asset of the last 15 years. And I think it will continue to be the best performing asset moving forward. So it's very important for people to get off zero, to save in Bitcoin, because if you are an average person, you're trying to save in dollars, like, you're getting absolutely decimated. And this is what it's all about. It's protecting yourself. They cannot debase Bitcoin. They're constantly debasing your favorite way to store value as an average person. And this is about self-preservation at the very end of the day. Yes, it's about censorship-resistant money, permissionless money, but it's also about saving your wealth so that it doesn't get debased, so you're not holding melting ice cubes. And I think we're seeing this start to catch on. So the frameworks, what's that meme, all your models are destroyed? So like, the frameworks get you through the door so that you can start to wrap your head around what's going on. But once you really understand Bitcoin, I think it's extremely difficult to not stay bullish about where we're going as Bitcoiners and where the world's going on a Bitcoin standard, or as Bitcoin being a store of value. And that, I think that is the best way to spread this message to people, is just like, I am optimistic about the future while everyone else is pessimistic about the future. This is how you spread the signal, is being like, look, in the face of all this crazy stuff, the world will get better. And it starts with fixing the money, because that's how we fix the world.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, before we get onto the culture segment, I do want a very special shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is the Bitcoin social layer. Find local Bitcoiners, events, and merchants near you. Join the 10,485 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. It has a really clever filtration system, so you'll only find fellow Bitcoiners on the app, and a geographical feature. So if you're traveling, you're in a new city, and you don't know any Bitcoiners near you, you can pull up the app and it will literally tell you geographically the Bitcoiners that are around you. You can send them a DM. It's also one of the best ways to connect with me directly. You could send me a DM on the Orange Pill app, and I take the time to get back to each and every single one of you guys. So download the Orange Pill app today, scan the QR code, or check the link in the video description. All right, everybody, let's hit the culture.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, KABOOMRACKS. They are the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. To check out their racks, you could scan the QR code or check the link in the video/podcast description. That will take you directly to their inventory on Telegram, where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them, access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with KABOOMRACKS. They also have a very special deal going on currently. They're offering instant hosting for an S19 Pro 120 terahashes. There's a one-time payment of $2,466 plus $160 per month thereafter. The hash rate goes online right after your payment is confirmed. You own the miner. This is not a hash rate contract. The price includes 3-month security deposit and first month, and the hosting price is as low as 0.079 kilowatt hours. So if you guys want to start hosting instantly, start mining instantly, check out the special deal going on right now by KABOOMRACKS. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description.
Let's go. Okay. So, Anita, super glad to have you. And I want to kind of circle back to the conversation we were just having. And you did kind of mention a few things that I wanted to talk about. And one is the attack on privacy at large, and of course on Bitcoin privacy in general. But you did do a really great documentary last year about how Bitcoin enforces human rights. So can we kind of mash these two ideas together and talk about the attacks on privacy and how Bitcoin is really a human rights issue? And I know this is going to be right up your alley.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So I just made a new talk because I'm in Arnhem at the moment at adopting Bitcoin Arnhem. Next week, I'm at the Oslo Freedom Forum, and then at BTC Prague, talking about how Bitcoin enforces human rights, and also doing workshops with human rights activists from all over the world to show them how Bitcoin can help them to receive money, to fund their non-profit organizations, to fight against authoritarianism and other fight for their rights, yeah, and to party maybe. There are like 30 articles in the United Nations human rights list, and I identified that for 11 of those, Bitcoin can be a tool that enforces it or supports that human right. And we were just speaking about the right to privacy, which is an article in the Human Rights Convention list. And also there is the presumption of innocence. And I want to talk about the presumption of innocence as a human right and how we don't have that anymore in today's world, together with that we don't have any privacy anymore. Because, and also the goal of, it seems, every government in the world is to basically have a complete picture of all what we do. Like, with all the KYC regulation and the anti-money laundering rules and regulations, it's now the time that we as people who want to use some form of money or some form of financial account and even Bitcoin, we need to identify ourselves upfront. So basically, we are not innocent anymore. We have to show that we have to give them our identity, so that we can prove our innocence all the time. So it's not anymore that they go for the criminals who might do some illegal stuff before they use money or after they used it, and have to prove that they made something which is illegal. No, now it's us who have to prove ourselves upfront. And also recently there was this court case in the Netherlands last week, where the software developer of Tornado Cash has been convicted to more than 5 years of imprisonment. And one of the explainers of the judge why that happened was that they said that the developer basically made some decisions to work on that code, and in the knowledge that maybe also people who are doing illegal things can use or will use his software. So basically, it's like a knife manufacturer, for instance, is selling a knife and someone is killing someone with that knife. I never heard that a knife manufacturer or a gun manufacturer was imprisoned because they also know that someone can kill someone with it. Yeah. So this is very, very worrying to me, as I said before, because it also takes the freedom of speech from us, which then takes freedom of association, because if I can't express my my will or my opinions through money, because if I donate to a cause, I express my opinion. And if I can't express my opinion with money, I can also not associate and get together with others to demonstrate or protest against something that's unjust, or against police brutality, like it happened in Nigeria, where Bitcoin was then really used, like with BTC Pay server, the feminist coalition was able to receive donations from abroad again to support the protests against police brutality. After that, the fact that when they first started to using the banking system, the central bank immediately shut their banking account. So they remembered there's something like Bitcoin and set up their own BTC Pay server. So Bitcoin enforces a lot of human rights, also like freedom of movement. Yeah, That's also, you said Bitcoin is superior to real estate. I agree for me, because with Bitcoin, I'm very mobile. You can take your Bitcoin anywhere, and you only need to remember 12 words if it's hard and you need to move fast because maybe there's a war or some sort of catastrophe in your country and you need to leave. So Bitcoin is really, how shall I say, it's the backbone of or the embodiment of human rights. You can't do that with any other cryptocurrency because all those other cryptocurrencies, they're in a way centralized. They can be shut down, and only Bitcoin can't be. And so it's our only defense tool, actually. And regarding privacy, yes, we need more privacy on chain. We need more possibilities to hide our traces. And this is not because we want to hide something from our society and from the government in that sense. I mean, I see the government and authorities in my country as they are here to the service of the people, not the other way around. And if they do a good service to my country and to my living standards, then I pay taxes. I can also pay them in Bitcoin. But I don't see why I need to pay a capital gains tax and a tax on my income with the same currency, which you have to do now in Austria, for instance. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to be said about that. And it's right that, like Yuval Harari, the author, recently said that Bitcoin shows, basically, in my words, I would say, it shows that people have lost trust in their governments, which is actually true. And but it gives us hope, and we don't need to trust the Bitcoin system because it has its own rules, and no human interaction can change them to their own good. And that's the great thing about Bitcoin. And I think it's something that so many people still can't grasp. And I know that a lot of people are also very scared. So interestingly enough, if I talk to people about Bitcoin in Europe, most people, the first thing they say is, it scares me. I don't know how it works. That's the first thing. And the next thing is, what happens to our society, to our societal contract. Yeah. So people are afraid of the new. They justify the system that they have at the moment because actually they arranged themselves with it. And so I think people who are already in Bitcoin, in self-custody Bitcoin, are those who like Andreas Antonopoulos once said, Bitcoin is punk. Yeah. So we are still the punks. It's still very early. And I hope that people more and more realize that Bitcoin is for anyone, and it doesn't favor the crypto bros. The crypto bros are in shitcoins, in shitcoin land. And that's something different than Bitcoin from my perspective.
Amen to that. I do want to, before I pass it back up to Opti, I do want to give a shout out to John. Thank you so much for the super chat, the $20. Appreciate it, bro. He says, fix the money, fix the world. Thanks to all you hardworking folks. Keep up streaming and stay strong. Thank you, John. Appreciate John. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Appreciate the super chat. Anyways, back to you, Opti.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Anita, couldn't agree more. I totally agree. And let's talk about Bitcoin for Fairness. I'm going to pull up the website, and I really enjoyed the stories you were telling us early. So maybe for people that are joining late, can you talk about the on-ground response to Bitcoin with your work at Bitcoin for Fairness? Uh-oh, did we lose her? Did we lose me?
No, I'm still here.
It looks like Anita's frozen.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Anita for a second.
No.
All right. Oh, she dropped out. All right. So
okay.
let's keep talking for a second. We'll give Anita some time to see if she can join back. But it seems like we are doing this live, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, dude,
man, well, we got most of the culture in.
Yeah, we got most of the culture in. I do want to give a shout out to Anita for joining us. Check out her website, Bitcoin for Fairness.
It's bffbtc.org.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check it out. I want to give a very special thanks for Anita joining us on Simply Bitcoin Live today. Dude, today's show was packed with news. Oh, we got Anita. We got Anita back. There we go. Okay, we were about to.
Sorry.
Could you hear us, Anita?
Or am I not back?
Your audio's back.
I can hear you.
Your audio's back. Your audio's back.
Okay, so before we go off,
I lost connection.
It's all right. It happens. Before we roll this out, can you talk about Bitcoin for Fairness, and then we'll wrap today's show up, apparently.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, Bitcoin for Fairness, our project at the moment is Crack the Orange, where we have a online course program with a 12 months membership for new Bitcoin educators and community builders in African countries. So our goal is to educate 100 Bitcoin educators a year so that they can share Bitcoin education in their own areas, local groups and countries. We started that because from my travels, I did a lot of workshops and talks, and it was great to be there on the ground to build trust and to talk about Bitcoin. But then, people need a local meetup. They need Bitcoiners there where they can connect with and ask questions. And that's why we want to build these Bitcoin educators and community builders and help with education. Crack the Orange, on the other hand, is also a program for anyone all around the world who is new to Bitcoin. It explains the how and also the why of Bitcoin. Why is self-custody important? How does it work? How do you store your seed phrase the best way, most safely? What is the Lightning Network? Which wallets to use with wallet tutorials and things like that. So it's a holistic program. And at the end of the year, I'll go back to African countries, to Zimbabwe, and also I think to Kenya, to the 3rd Afro-Bitcoin conference, which is a great place to be because African countries, especially South Africa, for instance, are very innovative. In Cape Town and in South Africa, you can pay with Lightning in over 2,000 supermarket stores all over the country. And that's a great thing to have. And yeah, that's what we do basically. Like Bitcoin for Fairness is a non-profit initiative based in Uganda. And yeah, if you know any aspiring Bitcoin educators in African countries or in the global South, tell them about the scholarship opportunity for Crack the Orange. If you want to bring your mom or your dad to Bitcoin, then you can send them to my course. And yeah, that's what we do. And if you just like to support the work that Bitcoin for Fairness has been doing, we now have a Bitcoin for Fairness group in Zambia, for instance. They are doing their own meetups. We have someone in Zimbabwe mining Bitcoin with solar. I connected Gridless with Bondo in Malawi, a water power station where they now mine Bitcoin and things like that. So we are also doing a lot of work to connect Bitcoiners on the continent. So if you want to support our work, please do so. We don't have any sponsors or something. You can support it by donating Bitcoin or Lightning. And that would be great if you did that.
Awesome.
Love it.
Absolutely, guys. Guys, check out Anita Push's work. You can go follow her on Twitter at Anita Push. And guys, go check out her initiatives. Check out what she's doing. Definitely doing Satoshi's worth. Satoshi's work and the continent of Africa, really pushing, you know, the benefits of Bitcoin, the empowerment that Bitcoin can give you to communities that need it the most, right? So definitely support Anita, what she's doing, donate, and help the cause. And I also want to thank her so much for coming on the show today. Huge fan of her work, like I said. And guys, you know the deal. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. But the number one thing you can do to help push the peaceful Bitcoin revolution is share Bitcoin content, share Bitcoin, you know, share stuff like what Anita is working on. And that's really how we really move the envelope. We win over the hearts and minds of individuals all over the world. Anyways, love you all, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Episode was brought to you by bitcoinwell.com, on a mission to enable independence.